Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another product review. And obviously from the size of the box that I have on the workbench today, we're going to be taking time to review another rifle scope. And this is coming from a company called Nutrek, and the optic is the Coppertag. It's a 5 to 25 by 56 scope. Now this is a Chinese company, but they reached out to me and said, hey, we're trying to break into the American market. Would you take a look at one of our optics and do a review? And I said, sure. I've actually enjoyed doing many of these rifle scope reviews. I've learned a lot about optics, and often I discover that when it comes to optics, you do get what you pay for. But there have been a few gems that had been sent to me, things that I thought were relatively affordable, but very high quality. So I'm hoping this is going to be one of those products. So let me go ahead and adjust the camera. Let's take a look at what comes inside the box. Then we'll mount it to the rifle and of course take it to the range and see how it performs. So here's the box this Nutrek Coppertag comes in. On the side of the box here, it says it has an MRAD illuminated reticle, zero stop turrets, 34mm tube, first focal plane. So I guess the reticle is going to change sizes when you adjust the magnification. On this side over here, we have all of the information about the scope, which I will add to the description of this video. I don't want to bore you with all of the specs right now. But let's go ahead and open up this box and see what this scope looks like. I sure hope they included some scope rings because I know I don't have any that are 34mm. So we'll just have to see what comes in the box. Of course, we have our user's manual. We get a cleaning cloth. We get an Allen wrench. Looks like we get a lens cap, a little part here, and obviously the scope and no rings. So I'll have to deal with that in a minute. Oh, I guess we get a sunshade as well. So let's take off the plastic and take a look at the Coppertag. All right. So here it is. So far, it looks pretty nice. I don't see any real issues with it. It's a pretty hefty scope. Everything on it looks like it's finished well, machined well. We're going to have to figure out how the illuminated reticle works. I'm not sure they sent a battery with it. I do not believe they did. I do have some batteries for it. And there's the battery compartment, so that's not really a big deal. I guess I can set that aside and put the battery in just a minute. So there you go. Looks like some assembly required here. So I think the next thing I need to do before I can really look through the glass and see what the quality of the reticle is, I should go ahead and mount it to a rifle. So I'm going to use my NS-15 from North Star Arms, which is kind of my test bed rifle for all of these products. So let me go ahead and see if I can get some 34mm scope rings. Let's mount it to that rifle and we'll go over its features. And so here's what the Nutrek Coppertag looks like on my AR-15. I did have to get some scope rings and a riser. But overall, it wasn't a bad process of installing it at all. And we do have a few adjustments. I did put the battery into the battery compartment to illuminate the reticle. I have to say that just looking through it, I don't feel like it gets bright enough, but I'll have to double check that at my range when I'm in a little bit lower light. We do have the fine focus as well. The turret on the top cannot be locked down in any way, but I do like how the clicks sound and feel. They feel very strong. And then on the other side of the scope, we do have a cap on that turret. I really feel like they probably should have put a cap on the top as well. That would be really nice to make sure that once you get the scope zeroed, it will stay zeroed. We do have a knob, of course, to adjust through all of the magnifications from 5 to 25. As I have looked through the scope just here in the garage, I'm pretty happy with the glass. It looks pretty clear, but the real test will be at the range. So that is what comes in the box. That's what it looks like on the rifle. So now it's time to see how it performs. So of course, I'm just going to start off at 25 yards. I'm going to see how easy this scope is to zero, and then we're going to go out to further distances. And I'll report back to you with anything I discover about it. So let's go to the range and check out this Nutrek Coppertag. And with my first shots through this rifle with the Nutrek Coppertag on top, what do I think? Well, I have to say overall, I'm pretty impressed by it. The turrets are no stop, and all of the adjustments are very tactile and audible. They seem to be solid. The only thing I would like to see changed would have the top turret have a cap like we do have on the windage turret. Now, when it comes to the reticle, it's very clear. It typically looks like a Christmas tree. You guys are probably very familiar with a reticle that looks like this. Only the center crosshairs are illuminated, and it's very subtle. There's not a lot of illumination, and even on the brightest setting, I really wish it could be a little bit brighter. But if you're not looking for anything that's going to be over the top when it comes to the illumination, you might like this. Overall, I'm very happy with my first shots with this, so now we're going to double the distance of the target, go out to 50 yards, and remember, I am just an average gun guy. Can you make shots with this scope out to 200, 300, 400, 500 yards? Well, absolutely. In fact, one of the things I didn't film at the range is I did track this scope at 100 yards. I don't have the equipment to show you the camera through the scope, but let me tell you, at 100 yards, the elevation was right on with all of the adjustments, but I felt like the windage was off by about 1 click. Not too bad overall. So now let's double the distance of this target going out to 50 yards and just see what I can do with this Nutrek Coppertag, and if I can continue to get good groups with it and make sure that it holds zero. And at 50 yards, I went up to 10 times magnification. I'm getting no blurriness or distortion in the field of view on the peripherals. The reticle continues to look clear. Obviously, I was shooting a little bit to the right at the beginning. I had to move it to the left, and I used the reticle for that. And because this is a first focal plane type of scope, that reticle is going to enlarge with magnification. And everything seems to be clear. Overall, I'm very happy with the quality of the glass and how clear it is. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is set up the target at 75 yards, do this test again, and once again, see if there's anything about this scope that I like or don't like, and I'll come back here to the garage and report to you about it. At 75 yards, I went up to 15 times magnification. The field of view is still clear, but now I'm starting to have to use the parallax focus. They did mark it in yardage, and so when I put it right to 75 yards, it was actually right where it was supposed to be. Many times scope companies don't even put those markings on there. You just kind of have to generally find where they're at because generally they're not accurate. But this one seems to be right where it should be. All of the adjustments for the magnification and for that parallax focus are smooth. There's no bumps or grinding or grit in that. I do like the way all of the adjustments on this scope feel. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do now is set up the target at 100 yards. And yes, once again, I know I should be able to shoot out way further than that with this scope. But this is the only range I have available to me. And as an average gun guy, I feel like this is an adequate distance for the way I think many of you are going to use this. So let's go back to the range, now at full magnification, 100 yards, and let's see what the best group I can get with it is. And at 25 times magnification or full power, this is where any issues that the lower magnification that you might have, you might not notice, become more exacerbated. Well, there are two things that we need to talk about. The first one is very minor. At 25 times magnification, the outer 3% of your field of view becomes a little bit distorted. It's not bad. Everything else in the center remains perfectly clear. But that distortion and that fuzziness should be mentioned, but it's not bad, especially for an optic at this price point. The biggest issue for me, however, is the unforgiving eye relief. According to the manual in the box, it's supposed to be at 95 millimeters, which actually is a perfect distance for me. It's just that it's unforgiving. If under recoil, the rifle moves a little bit or you change your cheek weld, you're going to lose your field of view. It is so unforgiving at the higher magnifications, and I didn't notice that at 15 or 20 times, but at 25 you definitely notice it. It becomes a problem for somebody like me that I consider myself to be eye relief sensitive. You might not be, but it is worth noting. I kind of feel like some of their competitors do this just a little bit better. Is it a deal breaker? Absolutely not. It's just something worth noting. So what are my final thoughts on the Nutrek Coppertag? Well, this is definitely a feature-packed optic, especially when you compare it to scopes that are 2 or 3 times the price of this one. It seems to be a durable scope. I had no issues with any of the controls. I feel like this would be a great scope for average gun people like myself for range and target use and for hunting. You definitely could use it for competition shooting, but you need to know its limitations and definitely test it out at all distances to make sure the turrets are right on and all of the adjustments do match when you track it. The biggest con for me, once again, is just the unforgiving eye relief, but I could definitely get used to it. So on my star system, how would I rate the Nutrek Coppertag? Well, I can easily give this 4.75 stars out of 5. It would honestly be a perfect review if it wasn't for the eye relief, but that really is, overall, in the grand scheme of things, a very minor problem. So tell me in the comment section, have you ever heard of this scope company? What do you think about it? And what do you think about all of its features? Is there anything about this scope you would like to see changed or different? So, as always, thanks for watching.